not mistaken, we have Shockwave The Robot on the line with us. So let's go ahead and welcome him to the air. Shockwave, how are you doing, man?
Hello, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. We are looking forward to having this interview with you. Of course, you've been doing a lot on the indie scene, so we've got a lot of good questions for you. So if you don't mind, let's go ahead and get started.
Affirmative.
Now, I got to ask you, what does your database recall from growing up, if you recall anything? Were you a wrestling fan? If so, who'd you look up to?
That is a very good question. Growing up, I do not recall. I must check my neural net processor. This will recall my most fondest memories. Please listen carefully. That should clear up any misconceptions.
Definitely. Now, my next question for you is, if Shockwave hadn't become a breakdancing wrestler, what would Shockwave have been?
I would have most likely been working at McDonald's, tending to the fry machine.
The fry machine. You'd rather attend to the fry machine than be a cash register or a cashier?
Affirmative. However, my dream job besides wrestling would be to work at a Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles.
Very good place to eat, of course. Now, my next question for you is, they say you captivate audience members between 8 and 88. What about the rest?
No, none others.
All right. Now, my co-host Andrew Karlick has a couple questions. So, Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Shockwave, just a couple quick questions. What is your memory of being programmed at the New Japan Pro Wrestling California dojo?
Please hold while I transfer and update my voice-changing system.
Yes, New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo, 2007. What was the question again, please?
What was your memory, Shockwave, of being programmed there in the dojo?
Down at the dojo, that was a very interesting time. My most fondest memories were nervousness, as there were 23 other professional wrestlers in attendance, all vying for the attention of the talent scouts at the time. However, after wrestling Masato Tanaka, I was whisked away, and they were enthusiastic about bringing me to Japan.
Yeah, speaking of that, out of only 23 Earthlings, you were the only one that was selected to go to Japan. What was in your circuits that made you stand out above the humans?
It must have been, how do you call it, affirmative action suit or something to that effect. Perhaps there was not enough robots in the company at the time, so it might have been mandatory to hire at least one robot as to not seem as a discrimination factor.
Okay, now, you're pretty much a national hero during your first tour of Japan. Now, are you capable of feelings? And if so, how did that affect you?
The first tour of Japan, I was overwhelmed. All of the fans were in shock, literally, to see a robot wrestling, and I was in shock as to their reaction or non-reaction, as they just sit and watch the matches very quietly and then applaud at numerous and various times.
Now, I got to ask. Oh. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, Shockwave, we have a caller on the line. How would you feel about taking a call from one of our listeners?
Actually, the caller hung up.
It looks like we lost them. My apologies, Shockwave. I'm nothing but an earthling, so you'll have to forgive me. Now, you had a lot of friction with Mecha Mummy over there in Japan, and it seems to me like if the two of you joined forces, you could rule the world. Seemingly, neither of you could feel pain, so why all the animosity?
No, he is an obsolete. He is very inferior. They dug him up out of the pyramids to come and attempt to fight me. However, it took 2 Mecha Mummies to defeat Shockwave the Robot and a bottle of water, because they knew I was the more sophisticated fighting machine. I was also far superior in the office setting, as I could do more work than Mecha Mummy. He can't even type. This can be seen on YouTube.
I actually saw that match. It was a very good match. And Jason Moore 420 in our chat room asks, what is your favorite lubrication so that your joints don't rust?
I like glucosamine chondroitin. However, Astroglide, I believe, is the best.
Now, my next question for you is, what do you say to people who say you are the most scientific wrestler of all time, in more ways than one?
This is correct. I not only can entertain, but I am also programmed for various intricate chain wrestling maneuvers. So I would agree with that statement.
Now, why don't you tell our listeners, Shockwave, about your comic book?
Yo, chickadee, check yourself. We got the funky fresh. Now we got 3 issues of Shockwave the Robot comic book. 2 brand new ones soon to hit the scene at a local wrestling show near you and on my website. We have the origin of Shockwave the Robot, the first issue of Shockwave the Robot, and the second issue of Shockwave the Robot, in which I fight the dastardly Mecha Mummy. Soon to come out is the 3rd issue, which will feature Metal Master, another infamous and worldwide known professional wrestler.
Mm-hmm. Now, you actually, with your comic books comes conventions. Now, what is your experience of going to these comic book conventions?
Yo, chickadee, check it. I go to these conventions, and I walk in, and everyone is staring at me. R2-D2, Darth Vader, C-3PO, Laura Croft, Batman, Robin, and it looks like I'm stepping on their turf. But I just moonwalk past them and dust off a bit of funky freshness on them, and then I go and sign autographs for all the fans.
Now, can you talk about your grueling Canadian tour? It seems that as a robot, you don't need rest, so the schedule is obviously not an issue.
However, I do need a recharge of batteries. The first time I did a tour there was a 14-day stretch, I believe. 14 days and 12 wrestling shows, something to that effect, if I can recall. of which I wrestled 14 matches in 12 days. I was very exhausted by the end of it as we were traveling from town to town by ferry through the dusty wilderness. I saw bears and moose, and this was not my familiar surroundings. There was not even a place to get oil. Other than that, it was okay.
Now, of course, with WWE being a PG-rated show, is there any talk about you maybe going into WWE? I mean, it would be prime time for a character like yourself.
Tell Vince to give me a call. I'm begging. I need some work. I would love to go in there. I have vast marketing ability. I have numerous promo capability, voice-changing applications, vignettes, which are unlimited. I would like to end up being a character much like Santino, because whether or not he wrestles or not, he always gets a spot on the show, and you really could care less if he wrestles a match because he is that entertaining.
Now, Shockwave, you have your own film, your own documentary coming out soon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, this is based on my first comic book, Shockwave The Robot, the Origin Edition. This was filmed about 2 years ago and is in post-production currently. It is almost wrapped up. The feature is approximately 60 minutes and features professional bodybuilder Rick Cancelino and also former WWE, WCW, and ECW referee Hotbod Todd Taylor. Also, another manager, Kenny Casanova, who was inducted into the New England Hall of Fame. He is also starring in it. And martial arts guru Dave Tanner.
That's quite a lineup there. Now, recently you've actually done some performing outside of the ring. You've gone on the road with Circular Nocturne, doing it with your breakdancing skills. Can you, do your circuits allow you to remember that, or did that just short it out?
No, I would go on the road with them to various towns, New York City, and they would have all kinds of funky freshness on the show, from breakdancing to burlesque to comedians, contortionists, much like a jack-of-all-trades show. So that was quite fun. However, I have been mostly wrestling as of late. Recently, I completed my third tour of Japan this past April and May, wrestling for 01 and the Hustle Promotions.
Now, you talked earlier how sophisticated a robot you actually are. Presumably you have the ability to time travel. Have you done any time traveling? Like maybe you've gone ahead 10 to 20 years, which of course we wouldn't know because you'd come back to the exact same moment. But have you done any time travel?
If I was to do any time traveling, I would most likely go back to the days of the territories so I could get more work. However, I have not done any time traveling as of late.
Are you incapable, or do you just not care to?
No, my spaceship was dismantled upon crash landing to your planet.
Oh, that's too bad. Now, you're known for being a very religious robot. Is there a separate heaven and hell for robots and humans, or is it all the same place?
That is a good question. I guess my program would I am stumped. I guess there is a separate heaven and hell for robots. However, this robot is going straight to heaven thanks to the power of Funky Fresh Homeboy and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Now, Shockwave, on your website, it says that, you have been able to sell more merchandise than legends that you've been on shows with. Would you like to talk a little bit about that and how you've been able to market yourself?
This is affirmative because when you go to a wrestling show, please hold. When you go to a wrestling show, who do you go to see? You go to see wrestling now. However, the majority of people that are at the wrestling show are independent wrestlers. So this is the first time that someone has ever seen them. So that being said, much like all the Ric Flair camps and Tom Pritchard camps and Mike Bucci Supernova camps, they all suggest that you set yourself apart from everyone else when you step out through the curtain. So how are you to do this if you are just another generic player one, custom generic character with black tights stepping out through the curtain? Nobody cares. So you have to get something funky, fresh, and out of this world so the people can be captivated and entertained by it. Second, you also have to have a slew and plethora of merchandise that people want to buy. So hence why it comes time for Shockwave to go into the ring during intermission, and another professional wrestler who has had their run in the WWF. However, the kid who is 8 years old or older, possibly younger, has never seen that pro wrestler on TV and does not know about them. So they do not care for that wrestler. So they would rather take a picture with Shockwave the Robot.
Very understandable. I've seen your videos, and you definitely do, cater to the kids. I mean, I love your character, and a lot of our listeners have commented that they were looking forward to the interview because of your uniqueness. What are some of your favorite times in the ring? I got to ask.
My favorite times in the ring? This would have to be in Japan, of course, because to me that is something very hard to come by. A lot of pro wrestlers strive for just that moment. They do not even want to go to WWE or TNA. They only care for making it to Japan. So for me to be able to go and work in Japan, the majority of my moments would be from there.
Now, if you were to work somebody past or present that you've never gotten to work with, who would it be and why?
I would like to wrestle Jushin Thunder Liger because I admired him. I have seen a lot of his videos, and I admired him because he is one other character and or wrestler who has to wear a full body suit and cannot make any facial expressions. So it is very tough to accomplish any kind of entertainment and make a name for yourself with that. So Jushin Thunder Liger.
That's a good answer, actually. Jushin is, of course, one of the best out of Japan ever. Now, my next question for you is, what is a road story you can share with our listeners?
Please hold while I change to a more appropriate voice. Initiating human voice mode. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, okay. How's that? Oh,
That sounds good.
You got a road story now? What do you want? You want something queasy? You want something funny? I got them all.
How about one queasy and one funny?
All right. queasy one. We got Viper the Ninja on his birthday. We're at a McDonald's, and I see that we're getting ready to leave. He's going to, this is probably one of the rudest ribs I've ever pulled. He's going to drive away with Shane Alden, another wrestler, and I'm going my separate way with Vince Beach. And so we're leaving there, and I see he has a McDonald's value cup. So I ran inside, and I asked for a cup for water, and I poured ice in it, and I ran to the bathroom, and I filled it halfway with some bodily fluids, some yellow bodily fluids. And then I saw that he had his cup on the top of the car, so I went around and made the switch. And then we were saying our goodbyes, so I was waiting for him to take a drink, and everybody else was in on it. So we're all waiting and waiting. And he opened the car door, and he hadn't taken the drink. So I knew I needed to see the payoff, because it wouldn't be as good as if Shane just called me up and said, oh, he drank it. So I raised my glass, my cup, which was really his cup full of soda, in the air, and toasted him a happy birthday. And then he took a drink, and it was probably the best sell he had ever done, facial expression, and he just spit it out and threw it and was like kicking the air, and it was probably one of the rudest ribs, but one of the funniest ones.
That is very funny.
Another one was coming back from these main shows. It's probably about 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, and I'm driving, and I've got Loverboy Ricky Williams, Viper the Ninja, and Shane Alden in my automobile, and they're all about half asleep. So my whole goal was to pull over, grab a dead animal, open the back door, and throw it on Travis Berg's lap while he was sleeping. So I drove by. There was a dead possum in the road, and we drove by, and he knew what I was up to. So he said, "Oh, you wouldn't do it." "Oh, I knew you wouldn't." So I slammed on the brakes, whipped the car around, pulled over. I found a receipt, and I took that, and I wrapped it around the possum's tail. And then I went to the car to try to get him out, but he locked the door, so I couldn't do it. So I opened the trunk, and I take one of his bags. He had 2 gear bags, and I whipped it across this lady's lawn. So now he comes out of the car. So now we have a game of pickle going in between. I'm going to throw the possum at him. I'm swinging it at him by the tail. Or he's going to run and go grab his bag, and I'm going to, put the possum in his other gear bag. So he finally makes a dash for the bag on the lawn. And while all this is going on, this lady is peeking out of her window. This like 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. It's just daylight's just about happening. And he got in the car. I was going to set it on the seat, so he'd have to pick it up and physically move it, but he beat me around to it. So I jumped in the car and turned the car on, all the while holding it with my right arm. And Shane Alden was in the shotgun seat, so he scrunched up against the wall. And then all of a sudden, they just start going, oh. And I looked over, and some blood started dripping out of the possum's mouth. And I was going to keep driving down the road with my left hand while holding the possum out with the other hand, but the stench finally got to me, and I had to throw it out the window.
Damn. Now, we just have a few more questions for you, Shockwave. Now, my next question is, what can fans expect to see in the future from Shockwave the Robot?
More laser lights, more confetti blaster, and some more funky, fresh robot moves. I'm working on them as we speak. And expect me to be in a town somewhere, and not usually near where I'm usually on the East Coast, but lately I've been getting emails from people out west. I've got a show in Virginia on November 13th. So I'm coming to a town near you.
Awesome. Now, I got to say this before I kick it over to my co-host. In a breakdancing contest, I'd love to see you versus Jack Evans. Now, Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, where in Virginia are you going to be wrestling? That's where I live.
It's going to be for AWE Entertainment. It's aweofficial.com, or I believe it's on my Facebook page. I'll be posting it on my Facebook. All my wrestling dates.
I'll be sure to make that trip. And I just have a couple more questions. Actually, one of the questions comes from our chat room again from Jay Samola. With all the dancing ability, and you are without a doubt the greatest breakdancer in the history of the universe, have you ever been approached from Dancing with the Stars to appear on their show?
Hang on 1 second now.
No, I have not been approached by them, and I have not solicited. I would only consider myself not the best break dancer in the world. I would like to keep some humility, as some professional break dancer will probably outbattle me if I make that claim as the best in the world. I will say I'm the best robotic break dancing professional wrestler, as there is only one.
Now, as a robot, you obviously have a pretty sizable frame. Do you wear T-shirts? Because if not, we're affiliated with a company called Gimmicks T-shirts, and I'm sure they can make one to fit your frame.
I wear T-shirts. I wear Adidas warm-up suits, much like my Funky Fresh friends Run DMC, when I am not in my normal naked self when I come out to the ring.
So you're not always commando is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, Shockwave. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming on. Is there anything outside of that show coming up in November that you'd like to plug for our listeners?
Yes. Shockwave the Robot will be in Fairfield, Maine and Brewer, Maine this Friday and Saturday for IWE Wrestling. Next week, a double shot on September 18th for TWA Wrestling, and that is in Sewell, New Jersey, and then making his debut at the ECWA Wrestling in Delaware. Then after that, Sunday, September 19th for EC Lucha Libre in New York City. You can chickadee check out all my Funky Fresh action and up-to-date on my Facebook page, or go to shockwavetherobot.com, and you can find me there.
All right.
Hey, Shockwave.
Thank you very much.
Word. Thank you.